Had irritable bowel syndrome and chronic diarrhea for literally decades. And I didn't matter what I did, I could never get rid of it. But it seems that finally I have cured my IBS diarrhea. And so today I'm going to tell you how I've done that. Hi there, my name is Sue. Welcome to my channel. If you've not been here before, I've been eating a crazy meat-based carnivore diet now for nearly 2.5 years. And when I started, one of the things that I was hoping that it would help with was my chronic diarrhea. So, my history is literally decades of IBS diarrhea. I started having issues with diarrhea when I was a teenager. And, if I was anxious about anything or a bit nervous, I'd be back and forth to the toilet. And then that got worse after I had my daughter. I started having some really fairly full-on gut issues after I had my daughter. I had her when I was 17. I am now 60. So this has been a long, long time. But the diarrhea was it was on again, off again back then, it wasn't a constant thing. But in my late 20s, it became a real problem. And my health got really bad. But then I kind of improved my health and the diarrhea got a bit better and, the gut issues got a bit better. And so it wasn't quite as much of a big deal for a few years, but it was always there. And then in latter years, it has just got worse and worse and worse. But from about my mid-40s, early 40s, mid-40s, I had a really stressful year in 2008, and things just everything just went downhill after that. And the IBS diarrhea is one of those things that had got worse. And then we moved back to New Zealand 9 years ago, and I was hit with more mold exposure, fairly full-on mold exposure for 4.5 years in my workplace, and that just kind of sealed the deal, and everything just got really bad. And I had a lot of different health issues when I started on the carnivore diet. Didn't have any official diagnoses because I don't go to doctors ever, really. So I can't see the point in getting a name for something when I actually know what's going on. So that's just my thing. So I didn't have any kind of official diagnosis. I don't know what they would have found if they'd tested. I suspect that it may have been autoimmune, it may have been Crohn's or colitis or something. It got pretty bad, and I had times where the diarrhea was feeling like it was becoming kind of almost uncontrollable, and it was messing with my life and messing with my head. And, I have some issues with anxiety, and then that would get worse and they'd kind of feed off each other. So long story, I've done lots of videos talking about that in the past. So if you want to check those out, you're welcome to go and have a look at those. But today's video is to talk about what I've actually done that has resolved this finally. So as I said, I've been on eating a carnivore diet now for 2.5 years almost. So I started at the end of May 2022. Now, when I first started on the carnivore diet, as I said, I had a lot of other health issues going on, and some that were really concerning me. I was kind of feeling like something bad was going to happen. I had things that were going on with my heart. I was having neurological issues. I was having nosebleeds every day and feeling like I was going to pass out and having these weird dizzy spells every day. And so they were kind of concerning me more than the diarrhea. The diarrhea was definitely a problem, but all the rest of that stuff was probably more of an issue for me at that point. And those things were the reasons that I decided to try carnivore, because it completely went against everything I believed, because my whole paradigm was around plants being the healthy options, being vegetarian and vegan off and on over the years. I was vegetarian for over 10 years, and then vegan. I did 2 years solid as a vegan, and then off and on over even recent years up until starting on the carnivore diet. I actually did 6 months on a vegan diet just before starting carnivore. So that was my whole paradigm, was that plants were the healthy thing, But I couldn't work out why my health was deteriorating. My husband's health was deteriorating as well. And so we were both like, we eat a really healthy, clean diet, healthier than most people I know. and yet our health is deteriorating. Why? So when I started on the carnivore diet, initially, probably, I can't remember how long, maybe a couple of weeks, my bowel was a bit better. And I was like, oh, yay, this is good. And then it wasn't. And it got really bad. And so when I was first on carnivore, my bowel actually got worse. My diarrhea got worse. So that is something that may happen. If you're watching this because you've got irritable bowel syndrome and you've got diarrhea, some people will start on carnivore and they'll have diarrhea for a few weeks and then it settles, even with really bad bowel issues. But it may not. And that's the thing, is I want to let people know that sometimes it just doesn't go away that easily. And that was me. So it actually got worse. It became less controllable. I had lots of instances where I didn't make it to the toilet, or very closely didn't make it to the toilet, and that was really stressful. Especially if I did any fasting and different things like that. So it was tough going for quite a while. And I'd have little patches where it would improve, and it would get me hopeful, and I'd be like, yes, I've done it, I've sorted it out. And then, no, I hadn't. But I mean, most of the time that was only a week or two. Having a week or two without diarrhea felt like it was ages, And so, through my carnivore journey, if you look back, there's probably 2 or 3 videos where I've talked about, I've sorted out my IBS diarrhea, it's gone away. And then I would have problems again, because it kind of felt like if I changed anything, I would get the diarrhea back again. So I'd have, as time went on, I'd have patches where it would settle quite a lot, but it might only be, for a couple of weeks. And then I'd shift something in my diet and it would be back again. And so I've been really, really kind of cautious about making this video, and I've left it. It's been a few months now, probably 3 or 4 months, except for I had a little patch where I decided to take some B vitamin, multi-B vitamin. This was about 2.5 months ago. And I was doing that because I was trying to, we're working on sleep stuff. My husband has sleep issues, and a little bit off and on. My sleep's usually pretty good, but I thought, well, it might not do any harm, to take these B vitamins, because apparently our microbiome make B vitamins, but some of them also, they need B vitamins as well. And I thought, well, maybe I might need some of those, because I was giving them to hubby. So I took them for 10 days and then I stopped, because it started off, I had nausea, and then it just got worse and worse, and I ended up with diarrhea again as soon as I ate. Everything I ate went through me. So after 10 days, I just stopped. And it took about a week for that to settle down, and then I've had no diarrhea since. That was about probably halfway through August. So yeah, it's been about 2 months since I've had any diarrhea. So in the past, over the years, I've had so many food sensitivities, and, it just felt like everything affected my bowel. It didn't matter what I ate, it affected it eventually. I would realise that something was affecting me, and so I'd cut it out of my diet. And then, if you've been through this, you know what it's like. You're kind of looking for other foods that you can eat. And so then I'd find something that I could eat, and then it would last a little while, and then next thing it would be causing me problems as well. And I'd have patches where it just felt like everything I ate just made me feel sick, gave me diarrhea, didn't agree with me. And, people around me that don't have any issues like this, they think it's nuts. They think you're a bit crazy, and they think you're a hypochondriac, because I didn't really talk about the diarrhea side of things very much. That wasn't something that I kind of shared with people. It's embarrassing, especially as a woman, and so I didn't really talk about it. But, I just say that, it upsets my gut, and, I'd be back and forth to the toilet. And so that was just life, that was just no, gluten out of my diet years ago. So I had been kind of mostly gluten-free, and then I ended up with an overactive thyroid when I was in my mid to late 40s. So it was about 2011, 2012. And I completely removed gluten from my diet then, and never touched it again. And I also removed corn from my diet at that stage too, because I realised that was part of my problem, just through symptoms. And so That kind of eradicated a lot of even gluten-free products from my diet, because most of them contain corn or corn derivatives, and so I couldn't eat, most of the processed gluten-free junk. I couldn't eat that. I generally kept sugar out of my diet, processed sugars. I would eat natural sugars, like honey and dates and those sorts of things. But I eliminated all the processed sugars out of my diet. Really avoided ultra-processed food. We ate very little of anything like that, and still my gut was not good. I mean, a lot of people, if they get rid of gluten out their diet, it'll help. It probably helped a bit, but it didn't stop the problem. And so the way that I basically managed it was, because I don't do pharmaceutical drugs either, was using binders like charcoal and bentonite clay. So charcoal in particular, because charcoal will slow your bowel down. So I've used a lot of charcoal over the years, and especially in recent years, and even since I've been on the carnivore diet, to try and slow my bowel down so that I can function day to day and run my business, because I work one-on-one with people as a natural health practitioner, and so having to run back and forth to the toilet kind of gets embarrassing and is really inconvenient as well. You're in the middle of someone's massage, and then you've got to excuse yourself to go to the toilet, and then if you have to excuse yourself 5 minutes later, it's just not ideal. So lots of charcoal has been consumed by this body to slow things down. So a big part of my problem in recent years in particular has been stress and mold. So as I mentioned earlier, I was exposed to mold. I have had a bit of mold exposure over the years, even prior, I kind of realised. And so I think that may have been part of the problem for quite a lot of years. But when we shifted back to New Zealand and I had my business in town, the building that I was in had a really bad mold problem. And I kind of knew that because I'd worked in there before for 4 years, but I'd forgotten. And when I went back in there, it was like I'd already arranged it all, and I was like, oh, that's right, mold. And so I was in there for 4.5 years, and eventually moved my business home because I realised that mold was really affecting my health. I just didn't realise how badly. And so that was a big part of my problem as well, was the mold. And that was prior to me starting on the carnivore diet. So I moved my business home at the beginning of 2020, and I started on the carnivore diet in May 2022. So if you have a look into the carnivore diet, you'll find that a lot of people they heal their bowel issues sometimes really quickly on carnivore. Even Crohn's disease and colitis and those sorts of things will often just heal on, and any diarrhea will just gradually stop, sometimes quickly stop, just depending on what's going on. But for some of us, that doesn't happen. And I have other viewers who are following my channel who have got similar issues to what I had going on. And so it's kind of confusing. It's like, well, how come some people can start eating a carnivore diet and everything just resolves, and yet for me it didn't? So I actually tried the Lion diet twice in the last 2 years, and my diarrhea got worse. I mean, it was really bad anyway, and it got worse, and it didn't seem to matter how long I stuck to just red meat and salt and water. It just didn't quit, and so I would quit before it got any chance to quit. The last time I did the Lion diet for nearly 3 weeks, and I ended up giving up because I was like, I can't do this. I can't. It was pretty much uncontrollable sometimes, and you can't. I couldn't live my life like that and run my business, and so I had to stop and go back to eating some other foods just to make it more manageable. I think now, looking back, that part of my problem has been that I've had mold that has colonized my body. So if you've been exposed to mold, it can colonize your digestive system. It can get into your brain, it can get into your lungs, into your sinuses, and it can really cause you some health issues. A lot of people don't realize what mold can actually do to your body, but it can have very serious and very severe effects on your health. Now, when I started on carnivore, as I said, things got better, then they got worse, and then I was trying lots of different things and having lots of different experiences with my health. So I realised, that oxalate dumping was an issue for me quite seriously, and it was a big part of my diarrhea initially. for quite a long time. So I was passing oxalate crystals, kind of mounds of them for quite a long time. I had a lot of oxalate stored in my body. Now, I think that was probably partly due to my diet, because I had been eating a lot of high oxalate foods. I knew that I had an oxalate issue before I started on the carnivore diet, but I just didn't really understand it back then. I do now. And so what I've realised is that although my diet would have contributed a lot to the amount of oxalate that was in my body, so potentially would have my leaky gut that I've had for years and years and years. If you've got leaky gut, it's going to make your oxalate issues worse, and the mold as well. So if I had mold in my body, mold can actually create oxalate as well. So I've kind of had this huge oxalate burden that was going on, and so that was a big part of my diarrhea problem on carnivore. And then I also had issues with histamine, and so histamine was part of my problem as well. And histamine, I've now learned, like I've done so much learning throughout this last 2.5 years, and it can all be quite complicated, but I've dug into my DNA because I'd had my DNA done through Ancestry for my mum. She does genealogy, and so I kind of dug into my DNA and realised that I have genetics that make me more prone to histamine issues. And so, the histamine thing really became apparent when I actually became covered in a rash that went from my shoulders down to my knees, and it was itchy and I was miserable for over 2 months. It took for that to go away. And then when I learned more about histamine, I realised that histamine can actually cause diarrhea as well. So that can be part of, if you have an IBS diarrhea issue, histamine can be part of that problem. And to heal histamine issues, you have to heal your gut. So then I also realised I had all of this learning and all of these things that were going on with me. I kind of realised eventually that my gallbladder wasn't working properly either. If I did any fasting, when I broke my fast, I would get diarrhea. So I had got myself to a point where, the diarrhea was a bit better and wasn't so much of an issue. And then if I fasted, and broke my fast, as soon as I ate, like within 10 minutes, I'd be flat out making it to the toilet. And I had a really horrible experience where I had done the first time I did a 40-hour fast, and I broke my fast at lunchtime, and then I had a client after lunch, and I went out to see him, and I was standing in my clinic talking to him, and then I just started to have a panic attack, kind of realised that I desperately needed to go to the toilet, said something to him, I can't even remember what I said, just bolted out of the room, and I actually didn't make it to the toilet. And so I had to quickly shower and change and go out there and make an excuse for why I had to go. And it was horrible. And so I kind of realised that the fasting was triggering the diarrhea, and eventually I realised that was my gallbladder. So I started working on my gallbladder as well, and so I've been taking Tudka for about probably 12 months now. Tudka is a bile salt that really helps to get the gallbladder working properly. It has other benefits as well, but it really helps to get the gallbladder working properly. I'll link to Tudka below, one that I have purchased on Amazon. I actually now take a Tudka powder that I buy here in New Zealand, but the one that I got on Amazon, I'll link to that below because I know I've got a lot of people in the US and in other countries that watch my videos. So I'll link to that, and then you can check that out. And the Tudka powder tastes vile. So unless you've got a pretty strong ability to drink really horrible, bitter tasting things, you're probably not going to want to have the powder. Capsules are easier to swallow. So the Tudka has really helped a lot. And now I can fast and break my fast without getting diarrhea, which is brilliant. So my gallbladder obviously wasn't working properly, and that's really common for people who have been on low-fat diets, on vegetarian, vegan diets, because there's just not enough fat to keep it going. But there can be other problems as well, and I will talk about those a little bit later. So then the next thing that I learned about was SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Now the mold colonizing my digestive system, as I said, I suspect I'm pretty sure that was a thing. And so that can be part of SIBO as well, but SIBO can be caused by antibiotic use, by using pharmaceutical drugs, things like non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs can also cause SIBO. You can get SIBO if you don't produce enough stomach acid, or if you're on drugs to lower stomach acid. I was on a drug like that a lot of years ago when I was in my 20s, because the doctor thought that my stomach was producing too much acid. When it was probably under acid, but he thought it was producing too much acid, and so he put me on this drug to lower my stomach acid even more. And so when you're not producing enough stomach acid, or if it's being artificially lowered by pharmaceutical medications, then any bacteria on your food, as you're consuming food, instead of being killed by the acid, goes through into your small intestine and can colonize your intestine. And your small intestine is 20 odd feet long, and so it's a great big space that can have a lot of different bacteria and funguses and things like that growing in it that shouldn't be there. And when that happens, so if you've got those things growing in your small intestine that shouldn't be there and colonizing it, that can affect the motility in the small intestine. So the motility is kind of the peristalsis action, the muscle action that the small intestine is supposed to have. So as it squeezes the food, your food goes from your stomach down into the small intestine, and it goes through all of these twisty-turny, bendy bits, and then into the large intestine, the colon, to be, and then it eventually evacuates. The leftovers evacuate via your poop. So if you have a small intestine that's not functioning properly and not doing that squeezing action, then you can end up with food and bacteria sitting for too long in the small intestine, and that can cause SIBO as well. There's lots of different thoughts about why it happens, but basically it is because there's something that's not working properly. So lack of stomach acid, lack of peristalsis, motility. Or it can also be because your gallbladder is not working properly. So that's another reason that people get SIBO. So if your gallbladder isn't releasing enough bile, then that can, because the bile helps to clean things up as well, that can actually contribute to or cause SIBO as well. So when I learned about SIBO, I learned about it and started looking at different ways of addressing it naturally. And so what I did was I took a motility supplement, and I'll link to that below. And I did a protocol that is in a book written by Dr. William Davis. I will link to his book below as well. I'll put all the links to everything I'm talking about below. So Dr. William Davis has written a book, and he has a SIBO protocol in there whereby you use a few different supplements to help clean your gut up first. I used berberine and oregano oil. So I used oregano oil just for about 10 days or 2 weeks. And I used the berberine maybe for a month or 6 weeks, perhaps. So you can also use curcumin as well, if you'd rather do that. And so what they do is they actually help to reduce the numbers of the bad bacteria that are going on in your small intestine. And then you make this SIBO yogurt, and I have a couple of videos talking about how to do that, so you can check those out. So you make the SIBO yogurt, and I consumed that for probably about 6 months every day. And that yogurt is made from 3 different bacterias, and they need to be specific strains of these bacterias. And what they do is they have an antibiotic effect as well. So they help to kill off the bad bacteria in your digestive system, and they help to colonize your gut with some good bacteria as well. And so I did that for about 6 months. That made a huge difference. When I first started taking the berberine, I had some really wild stomach noises going on for especially the first 40 hours that I took it. It was like there was absolutely a war going on in my gut. And so it was killing some stuff. But after doing the SIBO protocol, he recommends drinking green tea as well, and green tea and clove tea. And so I did that for a few months as well. And it just made a huge difference. Didn't resolve it completely because I that was at the point where things were really pretty good most of the time, but if I changed anything, it would the diarrhea would come back. And so that, higher fat, lower fat, like it just switching things around, adding something new to my diet. I still couldn't do the lion diet at that point. Anything like that would just kind of kick off the diarrhea again. But it did make a massive difference. So I did the SIBO protocol and things were a lot better. And then most recently, I'd been listening to more information about mold. And so I decided to do a mold protocol. And so I started taking black seed oil. I was taking black seed oil plus a binder. And I realized when I started taking the black seed oil, after I'd been taking it every day for a week and a half, 2 weeks, I realized that I had parasites. So parasites are really common and most of us probably have them. But when they get out of control, they can definitely cause some problems. And so when I passed those parasites, everything changed and things have been much, much, much more settled in my digestive system. And I have had no diarrhea and things are just feeling really, really good and really stable. So that is basically what I've done. Now, with something I want to say about the SIBO thing. So SIBO is, if you look up information on SIBO, you'll see that it is really difficult to treat and to, get to stay gone. The modern medical system will treat it using antibiotics generally. Natural health practitioners will treat it using herbs, things like berberine and curcumin. Dr. Davis's approach using the SIBO yogurt is a little bit different because you're putting back in specific strains of bacteria that really seem to help. But still, a lot of people will get a result and, they might be good for a little bit and then the SIBO comes back. Now, my thoughts around that are that is because they're eating a standard diet. So if you're eating a standard diet, that contains sugars and starches and things like that, the bacteria, those harmful bacteria, the ones that are causing the problems, they really like those foods. I think that the reason that things have gradually got better and better for me and are just staying settled is because I'm eating a carnivore diet. And I really feel that a carnivore diet or something very close to it is the ultimate proper human diet that we should be eating, because the rest of my health issues have mostly resolved as well, and some of them resolved really quickly. The nosebleeds and the dizzy spells resolved within a couple of weeks. There was a massive difference with those, and that was why I stayed on carnivore even though my bowel was still really bad. If I hadn't had those things going on, I possibly would have given up and gone back to another way of eating, but because they resolved so quickly, and I felt better. I just felt so much better very quickly. That's what kept me eating this way and persevering, trying to sort my bowel out, because the bowel issue has been the thing that was the real bugbear. That's been the hardest thing for me to resolve. But I really can say with some confidence now that I have got it sussed and it's gone. So I think, there's obviously probably more healing to go in there, but, the diarrhea is gone and it hasn't been an issue. So that is basically what I have done to cure my diarrhea. Now, if you are on a diet and you are struggling with IBS diarrhea and it's not going away, I would suggest trying some of what I've spoken about here, or all of what I've spoken about here. Knowing what I know now, I would actually probably approach the parasite side of things first, because I believe that parasites are a huge problem and cause much of our chronic disease or contribute. There's lots of different sorts of parasites, and parasites are basically not only worms. So people think of worms, these big long ugly critters, as being parasites, but anything that's living in your body that's taking and not giving anything to you in return is a parasite. So that includes fungi, molds, and bacteria and viruses. So yeah, that would be the first thing that I would do now. If I knew what I know now, when I started, I would have focused on parasites first. Then I would look into SIBO, and I would look into Dr. Davis's book and do the SIBO yogurt. The idea with it is to get those bacteria in high enough numbers that it really makes a difference. Taking a probiotic capsule doesn't do that, then it's not in a big enough number. The SIBO yogurt's made with a 36-hour fermentation time, and so that really scoots those bacteria counts up really, really high, and that's what actually makes the difference. And I would also take Tudka. Tudka, I would advise anybody with ongoing gut issues and diarrhea issues to try taking Tudka, because that gallbladder is very likely to be part of the problem. And just coming back to the whole parasite thing, I've been looking into using wormwood. So wormwood is an anti-parasitic herb, obviously, but there's actually some really good research on that for gut issues and for bowel issues like Crohn's disease. So the studies that have been done on it show that it has real benefits, and people with Crohn's can gradually stop their steroid medication and still get really good results with the wormwood. It'll put their Crohn's into remission. So again, I suspect that Crohn's is possibly, at least in part, due to parasites, and that's just something that we don't know about. I mean, our doctors here in these Western countries, they're not trained about parasites, and we're kind of believe that they don't really affect us, and but it's just third world countries that have parasite problems. But we absolutely do have parasite problems here, in these countries, America, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, all of these countries, Canada. We're all having problems with parasites, but we just don't know it. And so some people go through their whole lives and never do a parasite cleanse, and the parasites are part of the problem. I've just actually been reading Hulda Clark's book on parasites. So she did a lot of testing and a lot of work with people over the years, so much so that she was basically run out of America because the FDA were going after her and she had to move to Mexico. But in her book, her testing showed that a lot of the chemicals that we use, the parasites really like. So, depending on what sort of chemicals we have in our body, whether it's benzene or, different things like arsenic and, mercury, things that we're exposed to, through our fillings in our teeth, through our work, our jobs, those chemicals will influence the parasites that live in our body, because the parasites like them. And so the parasites seem to like all the things that are bad for us. They like the chemicals, and they like the ultra-processed foods, and the sugars, and the fake starches and all those sorts of things. So it's best to, if you're not already doing those things, it's best to address those and learn about them as well, if you can, because even our personal care products, our skin care and all those sorts of things often contain benzene derivatives. So these are petroleum products. So, petroleum jelly is called petroleum jelly because it's made from petroleum. And, if you look at your skincare and, baby oil is petroleum. If you look at your skincare, you'll see that there's ingredients in there, petrolatum and things like that. So they're made from petrol. And so those things are going into your body, and the parasites like them. And so if you can start using natural skincare, make your own is the best way. One of my next goals is to get rid of my hair care products and stop colouring my hair again. I did stop for a while, and then I started again. And so I actually want to get rid of my shampoo and conditioner and start just using some natural stuff on my hair. But that's a whole other story. But yeah, getting rid of those products is going to help. It's going to help everything. And as I said, if the parasites are as bigger part of the problem with people's health as I think that they are, then the chemical side of things is huge. The general recommendation from most people that kind of work with people with parasites, functional medicine practitioners and the like, is to be parasite cleansing 3 or 4 times a year. If you have chronic illness, though, then it's kind of often recommended by a lot of practitioners to be almost continually parasite cleansing until your symptoms reduce, or go away. So, you might do a month and then have 7 days off, and then do another month and then have 7 days off, and change up the products that you're using. So, some antiparasitic herbs will help with some parasites and not others. And so, you can switch it up. I mean, for me, as I said, I was taking black seed oil, and that's what got rid of some parasites for me and made it fairly obvious that they were a thing. And the next one that I'm probably going to try is wormwood. I mean, you get different mixtures of wormwood and black walnut, and often other different herbs as well. There are essential oils that you can use internally for parasites. There's quite a lot of different essential oils that can help with parasites. Things like garlic can help with parasites. Pumpkin seeds. On Carnivore, I don't want to consume pumpkin seeds, so that's not something I'm going to take. But the liquid herbal products I will use, and I'll use a bit of garlic off and on. You can use, there are zappers. So there are different types of parasite zappers around. We've got one on loan, and we've been using that. They help to kill off molds and fungus and viruses. So I'll just run through that just to kind of make it clear, because I've kind of rambled on a bit, what I would do. So carnivore diet, super important. I would do that. That's me for the rest of my life, is the carnivore diet, and quite happy eating this way. So if you're not already eating this way, have a look into that, and have a look at the stories and people's testimonials of the changes that they get on this way of eating. It's absolutely amazing. Proper human diet. So the carnivore diet, and then I would focus on parasites initially, and I would take Tadka. So I would take the Tadka, and I would start parasite cleansing and see what changes. And then if there's not enough change, then I would look into SIBO and do the SIBO protocol. I would get Dr. William Davis's book, link is below, and I would start making the SIBO yogurt. I mean, you could do it all at once if you wanted to. You could start the parasite cleansing, do the SIBO yogurt, and take Tadka, and do a carnivore diet, and just see how it goes. I mean, for me, this has been a kind of ongoing learning process and experimentation over the last 2 years. But yeah, those are the things that I really feel helped, and that's what I would do if I knew what I know now and was starting again. So that's it. So if you've got any comments or questions, fire away. If you're struggling with this, or if you're struggling with health issues on carnivore, I actually have a Facebook group that I've set up for carnivore healing. And I also have a one on x.com as well. So they're both fairly new. The X group has got just me in there right now. But my Facebook group has quite a lot of members in there already. So I'll put the links to those under the video as well if you want to do that. And any comments or questions, fire away. If you like the video, make sure to subscribe and like and share with anyone you think might be interested. I thank you very much for watching me today, and I will talk to you again another day.